a lot of rules. And the first rule was that every slave had to be Catholic. They were converted whether they wanted to be or not. And they also had to go to church Sunday morning. But Sunday afternoon, for a short few hours, they were given some free time. And that area was a place that they could legitimately go. Oh. The question. Now, I have to tell you that the slaves in this area came from a lot of different places. They were speaking lots of different languages. They had no possessions, but they were often allowed to grow some vegetables. They could make something out of wood if they got a piece of wood. They were singing in their own language. They could play some kind of music if they could remember something. They were emulating Western music, which they heard. They also were joined over here by the Indians who brought flutes, whistles, drums. We feel very strongly that this combination of languages and musical traditions coming together made jazz. Now that's a theory, I can't prove it, but we feel very strongly that that is how it started. By the time we became part of the United States, whole different rules applied, and Congo Square was no longer considered an area that they could go to free. So, all right, up until then. Okay, so if you've ever heard of Congo Square.
Bubbles.
Okay.
I thought it was something Florida. Yeah. Like that. Yeah, it's bubbles. It was the first football game yesterday. It was the first football game yesterday. Is that Carter's first football game?
I drag you all the way.
She caught both teams.
To the back of the church. I can see I'm dragging you now. Where's my lady who wanted to walk and walk and walk? Anyhow, I've dragged you all down here. This is behind the church. This is known today as St. Anthony's Garden. But if you turn around and look, this street is a little wider than most of the streets we've been walking on, isn't it?
Yes.
Because originally the front of the church was here. This is how you came into the city. You came down this street and you got to the front of the church. When after the fire and they rebuilt it, they turned it around. Do you see the name of the street? Orleans for the Duke d'Orleans, the most important street for the most important city. So where that tree is over there, that was outside the French Quarter. Okay? And this way, remember, church and state were one. All right? The church participated in the governance of the colonies. Okay? There's a very beautiful patio that you can sit out with a blazing fountain. She also was showing over here the gumbo place, the old coffee pot. It's a very old building that has been here for a long time, and the food is excellent. So I'll show you this. And then further down here, this old wooden building, this is Preservation Hall. However, there's the old time Dixieland jazz and a lot of other things. Old building, they haven't redone much inside, so you get the feel of the old time jazz. So open at night, okay? Okay, have you been here yet? Okay, so look, you'll never see it this quiet again.
Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street.
St. Peter's Street.
Very good question. Where did the term poor boy come from? Poor boy, you know, in New Orleans is a sandwich. It's on French bread. Anything you put on French bread is a poor boy sandwich. So it's up to you what you want on your sandwich. But its term came from we were having a streetcar.
I think we had this in maybe they stopped in for a break. It should be.
But before we get that way, take a look at this church. Now, this is one of the oldest remaining churches here in the city. And this church was where they would have the funerals. And then they would take the bodies right outside the church into the cemetery. This church is still in use today. Now, when we cross the street, we are out of the French Quarter. I want you to realize that the cemetery came all the way up to the back of that church. Half of it is gone, okay? So let's go in the building over here and you can take a little break. Okay?
Jones is different.
The restaurant.
Jill, and I'll say
So that's the kind of
yeah,
experience.
so you can
Now, of
find
course, we joke, close to the environment, kind of sadly.
because I will stop at certain places and talk about them to get us back here because the bus will pick us up back in this location. So I want you to be careful when you talk to
If you were to do about that, I think this is 12 blocks back, that's the national high ground along the river. Different course of things they've been doing, seawall down the river, it will set you on one side or the other, depending on which way the storm comes in at any time. And even discussions of putting things on the internal levees throughout the city, how they are not going to protect everything. So you get kind of nice throw in your neighborhood, whether you happen to be on the walls of South Wall, travel, area.
Hopefully there were pictures.
was make this at the front. This is, we think, the oldest monument here in the cemetery. This is the old Barney monument, okay? And there were a lot of victims of yellow fever that are in this particular monument. Oh, well, not for me, but for you, because I don't think there's anybody there. So if you will follow me, if you, honey, be careful with this cast iron. You see the sharpness here? If any of you have been to the south of France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, this is what you see. What you're looking at is custom and tradition. I know you've been told we do this because of the high water table. That is not true. In the early days, they buried in the banks of the river. They also used churchyards. They used in the churches. Later on, after the fires particularly, they determined to have a cemetery outside the city limits. And this is what it is. And what they're doing is copying the kind of cemeteries they had from the countries they came from. And so this is a typical Mediterranean type cemetery. And what you have here is somebody, the head of the family, decided that they would have a tomb. And it's up to them what kind of tomb they wanted. You buy this from the church. This is a Catholic cemetery, okay? Early cemeteries are all Catholic. Got that? So, Catholic cemetery. And he decided, I say he because heads of the family in those days were mostly men. So he decided he wanted a monument. Notice it's got 3 shelves. Notice it's made out of brick. Now we call these often oven tubes because this is how the old ovens for bread were made, out of brick like this. Now local brick is lousy brick. You could write your name with it. So what they do, they put stucco over it. And then they whitewash over the stucco to make it look good. Now, somebody dies. What do? You have the funeral over there at the church, right? You take the body in a casket. You bring them over here. You go to your tomb. You open the shelf. You put the whole casket in. Re-brick it, and you put a plate up, like this. See the plate? Okay? Put on the plate whatever it is that you want to have. It's yours. Next person dies. What do? You go to the next shelf. You do the same thing. Now, I bet you're going to ask, like all my school kids, what do you do when all the shelves are full, right?
Right.
Then you go back to the oldest burial. You open it up and you remove anything that is not human. Casket, clothing, hopefully there's not much human remains. Whatever is left is gathered up into some kind of special container by either the family, the church, or funeral people. In the back here is a shaft. All of that is pushed into the shaft. It falls to the ground in a specially prepared hole. We call it the cave. It's an ossuary where it is mixed with the bones of their ancestors.
Oh.
Then the shelf is reused. So there is no limit to the amount of people who could be in each one of these. All right? Now, I know you probably hear, oh, there are bones all over. No, they're not. I mean, they're very quietly contained into an ossuary. All right? So any questions about this?
So someone actually has to open up the casket, pull the body out.
The casket should have disintegrated. Get out of your mind. A $10,000 casket, it ain't gonna fit in here. Okay, you want a plain wooden box. Get out of your mind that I'm gonna embalm this person for 20,000 years. Ain't gonna happen here. The whole idea is dust to dust, and most of these people were not embalmed.
Yeah.
We didn't do embalming until the Civil War. That's the first period of time that people really died far away from home. Okay?
So this is no longer used then?
Absolutely, it's used all the time. But you're not going to do what the funeral homes say, get this big dome casket because you don't want it. Somebody said to me, what do you do with the brass handle? You don't put brass handles on it. You want it to disintegrate. This is the whole idea, is dust to dust. You're going back to dust. You don't want to be here forever. You want that kind of thing, you're going to use a different cemetery, a different type of burial. And I will assure you that there is a way to bury in New Orleans for every religion, for every want that you want. How many of you came in from the airport? Saw the 2 cemeteries on the either side? The one on the right-hand side is Metairie Cemetery. It's a for-profit cemetery. This is where all our most important people choose to be buried. Generals, governors, famous ladies of the evening, maybe Bill whatever, and they can be there forever. Nobody's going to reuse their tomb. But this is a whole different concept, okay? So it doesn't matter what religion you are. You can have a private cemetery, for-profit cemetery. Masons have a cemetery. Oddfellows have a cemetery. You're covered, okay? So we must have about 90 different cemeteries.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
I didn't know.
It's still in use, folks. Don't you understand?
Yeah, but so they're burying them in wooden caskets?
Sure.
But you have to be in that family?
Oh, yeah.
It's whoever owns this. You have to have their permission. In other words, you don't have to be a immediate family member. If the guy who owns this says, you ask him, say, I don't have any place to put Aunt Sally, and he says, oh, Aunt Sally can come here. Why not? You know, it's his choice. It's like your house. You know, like you
Well,
want.
after they're gone.